This is not gonna be an easy first video. I actually don't know if I should even be recording a video, but um, I think that some things need to be said. First off, thoughts and prayers to my fellow Mainers who have gone through this horrific event. I have to be careful what I say because of YouTube's policies. Uh, uh, Second, we're going to start getting into the weeds about some of this other stuff that have been surrounding this horrific tragedy that happened. Um, it's not going to be an easy video to watch. It's not going to be an easy thing to listen to. And I would advise that if you don't want to hear what I have to say about the situation, that you should probably click off of the video right now. I don't have the reach of most high-level YouTube channels. In fact, I have no subscribers, no followers, none of that jazz. Um, so, um, what this is going to boil down to is a discussion surrounding the event itself. I will not be discussing too many details about the event itself. Um, it is not something that I think we should glorify by giving the event itself too much time on my channel, and I think a lot of other channels need to stop giving, news media outlets too need to stop giving these people this much media coverage because, like, you're glorifying the horror and tragedy of what happened for ratings, clicks, and views, which is not okay. Um, which is why I'm actually making this video. Yes, while the manhunt was active, it makes sense to make a news report because people need to know that they are potentially at risk. Um, but there comes a larger national conversation about um, having this go nationwide. Now, here in the United States, we have freedom of the press, where if you're a news media outlet, and if you're not, in some cases, especially with the development and advancement of the internet and certain other technologies, you can um, you can basically say more or less whatever you want within certain parameters. Um, Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing or what have you, it's kind of up to you to decide, I guess. But um, when you have a right like the freedom of speech, right to bear arms, free exercise of religion, like we do here in this country, you have to take the good with the bad, but you also have to take steps to mitigate the bad. Um, a lot of a lot of people out there think that proper mitigation of this is gun control, and I personally am against that, and that's a conversation we can have. I personally hold the view that our constant, almost um, kamikaze-esque plunge into, um, I'm not going to say depravity is the right word, but um, trying to flush our moral center down the tubes by not having a proper conversation about the value of human life in this country. And I'm not getting into the religious angles here, although my Christian brothers and sisters out there would have to say that we're all made in God's image and this was wrong all the way around. And using this tragedy that involved the death of so many humans that are created in God's image is just deplorable and unacceptable. But I think we need to have a larger conversation than just pointing fingers at who did it. and trying to blame the tool or the weapon used, because that seems to be the trend nowadays, is that people don't want to address the actual issues. They want to address the weapons or the tools or some other issue. They don't want to address the fact that on an individual and societal level, we have thrown away a lot of our moral stances, and it's not a good thing. And not just moral stances, either morality in general. It's not a good thing. Um, you know, we can sit here and have a discussion about what the Bible says about this stuff all day if you want to, and I would actually not mind doing a video about that. And if you do, a couple of comments would probably encourage a video discussing that topic. But um, here's the thing. Okay, when I was growing up, I'd done some things that I probably shouldn't have, but I had seen quite a few things over the course of my life, both on the streets, in the woods, um, you know, on the news. Oh, good Lord, on the news. Um, I think it's important for us to realize that 50, 60 years ago, the reason that we didn't have as many of these instances way back then, and even before then, there's a couple of reasons. One has to do with politics, which I will be getting into here in just a minute. But the other one has to do with the moral decay that I have witnessed over the course of my 30 some odd years on this planet. Um, I have seen from childhood us go from fighting for what's right to fighting for what's expedient, both politically and personally. Um, you know, throwing away, throwing things away that are done the right way for things that are done the fast way. Now, a lot of people like to sit out there and point out that there is a way to do things fast and right, and yes, there is. The problem is that we're so concerned with getting things done fast and right now that we don't care to have a discussion about doing things right. Well, we sit here and we wonder, why people like me are overweight, um, why our divorce rates are the way that they are at any given moment, why these tragedies and atrocities happen, and we don't want to address the actual problem that caused you to ask the why, because no one wants to give you a straight answer as to the why. So let's let's delve into that straight answer. Number one, the moral decay. As I said before, we have an issue in our society where we don't hold human life, and this is a worldwide thing. This is not just here in the U.S., but it is somewhat prevalent here in the U.S. Back in the day, we used to have a pretty darn high value on human life, and it was to the point where we respected each other. And it seems like today, if you lived your life based off of what the news was telling you, it seems like that's out the window at this point, and that's sad and relatively disgusting. Um, that's why when I watch my news media, it's in very small doses, and I get it from independent news sources, not from corporate journalists. And if I can get my facts right from the horse's mouth, meaning right from the source, um, I tend to go that route more than I do watching news reporters regurgitate stuff on the news. And credit to Tim Pool, I like some of his stuff, by the way. Um, not not terrible stuff. Some of his guests kind of have me scratching my head sometimes, but well, that's another topic. Shout out to him too. Good guy. I don't know him personally, but from what I've seen online, he's pretty good. Um, so that's number one. Number two, um, we don't address our mental health the way that we should. Um, our approach to mental health in this country is so diverse. Like, and I don't mean that in a good way. That's not diverse as in we take care of the individual needs. It's a diverse as in a you're either treated like they have like people have to walk on eggshells around you, or it's treated as a bullying thing, and just about everything in between those two spectrums of bad. And you know, look, I don't know what caused this individual to do what he did. There are some people out there who are just mentally not able to handle things. I don't know what caused it. It could have just been one thing. It could have been a lot of things. But from what I understand from the reports that I had read and seen, this person had already been in a mental health situation where he had made previous threats, according to what I heard, against his military base that he was supposed to be responding to. Um, and I guess the town was Saco. Uh, I think we need to have a conversation about why there was no follow up on those threats, why he still had guns. If there was a follow up, I think these are questions that need to be asked before I speculate on that too much. But back to the mental health. Um, look, when you have kids who are parts of a divorced family, um, maybe even one parent or both parents just outright abandon them. Um, when that becomes acceptable to the point where they're not held responsible, um, and I think it's important to address that too. The fatherless thing is not okay, and this is coming from someone who shouldn't be talking about this, and I'm not going to. But look, you can take all the guns you want, go for it. Not to get into too finer details here on YouTube because of policy, but there are far worse things out there than guns. And, you know, guns do one thing that a lot of other weapons don't. They give everyone a level field of defense. Um, Now, sure, you could argue that certain guns are, you pay more for more capabilities. Sure, you could make that argument all day. But in reality is, it does depend on the user to know what they're doing. And that's going to strike to another something I'm going to say later. Um, yeah. Um, Actually, it plays into point number two of mental health, which goes back to it. Look, I'm not gonna sit here this whole video and rant and rave about how the gun grabbers are gonna use this and exploit this for whatever propagandistic means because they've already started. They started before the guy was even caught. Um, we're not even gonna. That's another topic that I'll delve into here in a minute, but I'm going to actually say something to address the gun community, and it is we're brothers and sisters in arms. We keep our weapons close and we keep our minds right. Not all of us are able to keep our minds right 100% of the time. So if you see someone that you know, or maybe even someone that you don't, all right, and they're not dozing off, they're spacing out, and they're kind of just like they seem off, say something to them, ask them if they're okay. There are things that you can do, you know. Back years ago when I was a kid, there were a couple of things that happened to me in my life. I'm not going to get into the specifics. Um, and this more has to do with school culture than anything else. But most of the people who saw me having this really bad day, the teachers didn't even approach me. It was that kind of bad. There was one student who did, and I appreciate the fact that she did, and I'm glad she did because it was the one thing that I needed at that moment in time was someone to be there and tell me that things would be okay. Um, sometimes that's all it takes to stop this stuff. Like just the right person in the right place. Maybe not even with a gun, but with a calm, steady hand and the right words can stop a lot more than people think that it can. Yeah, sure, I do advocate that you should at least conceal carry. You don't have to open carry. I mean, I o- I open carry because my holster and the firearm that I chose kind of put me in the situation where I have to, but and I probably will be changing that in the near future because it's just obnoxious. Um, look, back to the point. People need to start looking out, and this is not just towards the gun community, but it is directed towards them too. Um, People need to start looking out for their mental health, but also looking to those sitting next to them or even in the same room. Ask them if they're feeling all right or doing okay emotionally, like physically too. I mean, geez, we just got locked down for a virus that killed people, I guess. Um, and a lot of other bad things that happen surrounding it that I'm not going to get into for risk of this video being banned. Um, Asking basic questions like that should not be taboo or questionable. They should be, these questions should be stuff that we should be able to talk about amongst our family and friends without fear of reprisals or issues. And at the same time, we should be able to have the tools to deal with this situation. Not necessarily saying that a gun ban of any kind is the answer because it's not. It really isn't. It just means that someone with another issue is going to find something even more creative than a gun to use next time. I mean, that's all you're going to do. People like to cite Australia as the example for not having gun violence and all this other thing. Well, hate to burst a bubble, look at their other crime stats. Also, they have better mental health systems than we do. So you gotta stop sitting here having a conversation about who should have what gun and start having a conversation about who has what issues and what can we do to fix that. And that's the problem with the government's approach here. They don't want to go that way because it's not politically expedient and it doesn't fit certain agendas. And I will call absolutely both sides on this. Look, you have two paradigms of the same coin, and it's all about lobbyists, lobbying, and money. All right, you have your gun lobbies. Everyone on the left likes to call them evil. They're actually not. They're a business first. They're not evil or good. They're there trying to make sure that the Second Amendment is defended. All right. And then you have gun control groups. All right. These are people like Giffords, for example. Um, they are paid. They like to claim themselves as nonprofit, but if you think they're not getting paid buku bucks through government grants, you're mistaken. Um, they are quite well funded to the point that they can employ people, paying them remuneration money, getting a paycheck, So that tells you right there that they are in fact not a nonprofit. They make money and they pay people for doing that what they hire them to do. So, and gun control groups largely operate under that, um, because it's the only way that they can get people to do it is to pay them an hourly wage, basically, or even salary. Whereas in the Second Amendment advocate circles, a lot of them are paid via YouTube donations and other more grassrootsy ways. I'm not pointing out that there's a difference between the two morality wise, because we could have that conversation about donor agendas at a later date. But um, look, this whole gun control versus pro gun argument is fruitless. All right. The Second Amendment exists in this country. Um, whether you like it or not, the AR-15 and the AK-47 are common use firearms. All right. At least they're non-automatic. This is their semi-automatic, which means you pull the trigger once, you get one bullet. All right. Those versions are legal to the United States citizens, and contrary to public belief, the full automatic versions are also legal to the general population of the United States. It just takes a little bit more paperwork and what's known as a tax stamp to acquire them. There's a process, and it does take time. The same is actually true for a lot of things that people don't realize are actually legal in the U.S. It's just you gotta go through a whole process to make it happen and pay money, lots of money. Um, so yeah, anyway, having said that, the Second Amendment exists. You're not gonna do away with it any day soon. All right, this is more directed to the left, but also something that the right needs to hear. Um, but I think there's a conversation that does need to be had about mental health and guns. Um, I am not a believer that the government should ever declare someone as mentally unstable enough to not have a gun. I think that should be left up to private entities, as in mental health organizations and doctors who are actually qualified to make these decisions. I also think that the process, if it ever gets to that point, needs to be scrutinized heavily. There needs to be no outside influence, for example, on the process. It should be if the person needs to have their guns taken from them because they're mentally if they are a danger to themselves and others and have proven to be as such, then that's when you need to contact the authorities. The authorities should not be contacting you as a doctor and saying this we need to have this person's guns taken away because of reasons. That's not acceptable. That should never happen. Um, what should be happening is the inverse of that, which is the doctor calling the police saying, "Hey, this guy is proved to be a legitimate threat to himself and others. We have it documented. Um, we need you to go get a search warrant to seize his guns or other weaponry." And that's yeah, other weaponry is another conversation to be had too, because guns aren't the only weapon out there. Um, you know, look, if you're a danger to yourself and others, if you're such a danger to yourself and others, there should be a conversation about you not having freedom in general. Like you should be being at least being spoken to about, hey, look, if you're threatening people, if you're being a threat or danger to others, there needs to be a conversation either with you or with you, a lawyer and a court system about you not exercising your ability to walk freely. That at least a conversation, at a minimum, you know. I just think that that would be the prudent thing to do in that situation. At the minimum, um, having a conversation with your therapist and having a police officer show up at your door might seem disconcerting and probably a violation of the HIPAA laws. But look, I'm sure there's an exception for clear and present danger. And when you make threats against people or places, that should be qualified as clear and present danger. I know freedom of speech exists too. I get that. But there's a fine line between sitting in a movie, enjoying a movie in a movie theater, and hollering and standing up and screaming fire when there is no fire. Um, there's a very fine line between committing a crime and being a normal person and not committing a crime. All right. And a lot of people like to use this mental illness thing as an excuse to barricade themselves and shield themselves from being able to make choices and all this other fun stuff. Well, mental health issues or not, choices are something that you make. You know, there are some mental health issues out there that do make it so you can't make choices. A lot of those people can't take care of themselves either, and they're being taken care of by family, the state, and they probably don't own guns. 9 times out of 10, at least I should hope not. Um, because to be honest with you, they probably don't have the faculties to understand how it works in the first place. And I get it, and it does suck. I wish these things didn't happen, but they, mental health is not not an easy subject. It's not. And that I think is another reason why a lot of people don't want to talk about it. It's not easy. It's not expedient. It's not the right now answer that they want. If you want a right now answer, here's a right now answer for you. No, you're not taking our guns. But yes, we do need to have a conversation about mental health and how we treat each other in this country and how we treat other people around the world. Um, you know, and not to get too far into it, but we have people from our own country going over to other countries as tourists and showing them the just utmost disrespect and treating them like garbage. There are examples of it. Look up some of the tourists that go to Japan. There are videos on YouTube of people doing this stuff and getting arrested for it. So, I mean, it's just, come on, guys, straighten up, Have a conversation about respecting other humans, other people. Have a conversation about what's right and wrong once in a while. Don't just sit there and assume that everyone knows what right and wrong is because, mental health blurs those lines quite a bit. And so does modern society, too. Stuff that was considered wrong 50 years ago, and biblically it was considered wrong by Christians, is now being accepted as okay. And ugh, not going to get into the religious bits of this because that's a whole like 3 hour long rant. But I mean, I could. Again, more comments on that would be. I'll tell you what. Anyone who watches this, if I get like, we'll try to keep it decent. If I get like 500 comments on either the religious topic or the politics topic, that's what whichever one hits 500 comments on it first is the one that I'll do. But um, just as a simple man and as a simple Mainer, this whole event, this whole tragedy is just it is jarring. As a gun owner, it's especially jarring. Like, and before people go too far, um, I am a legal gun owner. I own an AR-15. I know how it works. I know everything about it, including the illegal modification processes that can happen to it to turn it into a full auto or 3 round burst or whatever I want it to be. I'm never going to do it. I don't believe in those two fire modes. Personally, I believe you get better accuracy when you fire 1 round at a time. I've never been a strong supporter of accuracy by volume. I understand that the military does, and they have the budget to be able to support that, but I don't. And I don't think most people have the budget to support that either. I think that if you have to defend yourself, if you're going hunting, I believe that you should be using 1 round, uh, in general. Like, if you miss on your first shot when you're deer hunting with a gun, that deer is long gone. You're not going to get a second shot off. Um, you know, and in a self-defense situation, sometimes you do need multiple rounds in the chamber, and I'm not going to sit here and advocate for mag size limits because I don't think I have the right to tell you what you prefer for attachments on your gun. It's like saying I don't think you need a flashlight on that gun. That's not my place. Um, that's your decision to make as to what you use. Now, here in Maine, we have a different form of gun control to prevent poaching, and that is a 5 round limit on your magazine when you're hunting. And I do agree with that because poaching is terrible. Something that needs to be discussed is when you poach, when you take more than what you need, you're taking potential food off of other people's plates, um, and that's not okay. It's not. So, at the end of the day, you need to think about yourself, but also think about those around you and what you're doing and how it's going to affect them. Um, this isn't exactly what I wanted my first video to be about. I hadn't really made a choice about what my content was going to be about, but I just wanted to say this because it happened so close to home. Um, not not what I wanted to do first thing in the morning, but I think that some things needed to be said. Um, you know, but addressing the pro gun side too, as a pro gun individual, hey, look, we have subsections of our pro gun culture that we should be addressing. I mean, we got some really weird guys out there, guys playing dress up with tactical gear that they're never really gonna use. Kind of weird, not gonna lie. I mean, I get airsoft, that's its own little thing, but like, I don't know. I mean, if we're going to have the conversation about defending our country from all threats, foreign and domestic, as civilians, then people like me who are well overweight should not be overweight. That should be the first thing that we discuss if we're going to have that conversation in the gun community about being able to address threats. Physical and mental fitness are vital to that. They're not secondary; they're primary. You cannot sit there and be a responsible gun owner and user. If you go to defend a group of people from another group of people and you're out of breath before you even get to the site, all right, that does not work. Doesn't work. All right. And to my SHTF watching brothers out and sisters out there, that goes for you guys too. You can't carry that 20 to 60 pound bug out bag on your back if you're 100 plus pounds overweight and not doing anything with yourself other than sitting at home and working 9 to 5. Exercise is important. Getting out there, getting your health taken care of. Go see your doctor. Go see a psychiatrist, even if it's not for severe mental issues. Go talk to a friend at a bar, or go talk to your pastor at your church. A lot of people undervalue that resource because they see religion. Look, I've been to churches before and never spoke once about God. All right. It was just about having a rough time with things. And instead of antagonizing the issues, it helps to talk to someone, talk things through. Don't hide them. That I think is the biggest problem is the ostracization of, people with mental health issues because then they feel like they can't go talk to people. All right? They hide. They hide their problems. They bottle them up. And that's dangerous. That is not just dangerous for them, but for other people as well, because eventually they're going to snap, you know? And it is the way mental health works. Talk to people, be a person, go out and have a cup of coffee with your significant other and tell her what's been bugging you. Tell her you love her, you know? Have a good day out. And another kind of thing that's been bugging me too is we put so much emphasis on money in this country, and I get it. Paying your bills is important. Buying food's important. I'm not saying it's not. Rent's important. Mortgages are important. All right. But when you start putting more emphasis on that than you do your own mental health and your loved ones, then you need to have a long, hard conversation with yourself about are you living the life that you should be living? Okay. And from there, instead of looking at it with a look of despair, disparaging, the way of life that you live so far, appreciate what you've been given, but strive to get better. Strive to do better. You know, I'm actively cutting down on how much I eat to try to lose weight. I mean, not even a month ago, I was eating enough for 2 people. Now I'm down to maybe one and a quarter. I'm trying to get it down to just my own single serving size, which is not an easy thing to do, by the way. Once you get used to that gluttony, man, it's worse than a drug. Getting rid of it's hard to do, and very hard to do. Um, but that mindset right there, that because it's hard to do. People are going to hide behind it as part of the reason that we're at this problem. They don't want to confront the hard things in life. I got a news flash for you. Life doesn't care about what you think is hard or not. It just throws things at you. It's what it does, you know? And you're expected to respond to it one way or another. And sometimes when it gets to that pivotal moment, you have to have the right answer, or it's just not going to work out for you. But I hope this video reached the right people, and I hope everyone's having a better day than yesterday. And I think that we should all strive to have better days than yesterday every day of our life. And remember that even in the worst of times, every day is a good day given to us by God, and some days are just better than others. All right? Mm. Keep your stick on the ice and try to keep a smile on your face and a happy thought somewhere in your mind, and enjoy your day. That's what I got to say about it. Yeah, this stuff is terrible, and again, thoughts and prayers to the family and loved ones and friends of these individuals who tragically died over this week. And I think that's going to be it. I think that's all I'm going to say on the subject. I know I probably could have gone on for another half an hour now, but it's my first video on YouTube, and I don't really see the reason to drag it on for an hour and bore everyone to death. I think I've used up enough of your guys' time, so have a nice day.